Hey, welcome to the show. I love that video. Eric doesn't like the song so much, but I really like the video. Brings back some good memories. I think that was May. God, it was gorgeous. Anyway, that was Max the Axe with Call of the Wild. Welcome to the LeBrain Train. Our special guest tonight is Mr. Tim Durling from Tim's Vinyl Confessions, and we're here to talk about 8-track tapes. And yes, that is my only 8-track tape. That is Kiss Alive on 8-track. That was a gift from Mr. Jeff Stephen from 1001 Albums in 10 Years, the blog. Mr. Jeff Stephen, our resident grapher here on the LeBrain Train. I have a co-host tonight, and I would like to bring him aboard. He doesn't have a fancy intro, so I guess let's just run the show intro, shall we? Let's run the show intro, and then we shall bring aboard my co-host this evening.
Ticket to anywhere and a glazed donut to go. All aboard.
That's such a catchy tune.
I know, I was headbanging. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, sir. Aaron with an
Awesome.
8-track mind.
Yes. I was trying to be clever. I'm actually experimenting.
Okay.
These are the new wireless headphones, Bluetooth, no cable, and they have a microphone built in. So I just wanted to know if you could hear me, because if not, I would use the blue.
I can hear you, but you sound way better on the blue. The sound is very is a little rough on the Bluetooth.
That. Technical difficulties. Please hold.
Quite all right, my friend. So yeah, we are talking 8-track tapes tonight, and I will just grab my Kiss here and show the people what we're talking about. This is an 8-track tape, so called because it had 4 separate tracks, each one in stereo, giving you a total of 8. And Aaron, did you ever have experience with these back in your youth?
Actually, can you hear me better?
And Meet is saying I'm a little muffled. Am I muffled?
No, you sound fine to me.
Oh, okay.
It must be my snazzy new headphones. Can you hear me clearer now that I'm on the blue?
You sound great.
Well, thank you. I try.
Just great. I mean, you're no Eric Woods, but he has a built-in.
to answer your question, only owned by other people. Okay, I never bought them for myself.
But did you play them did you experience them?
I've had the experience of them, yes. Yes.
Good show and tell for those in the audience under 40. That's about right. Although, as Tim is going to educate us tonight, they didn't die in the 70s.
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no.
Aaron was muffled, but everybody's good now. Okay, good.
Sweet.
So yeah, Tim
Hi,
has
everybody.
written. Tim has written the book on this format, and I love formats. You know me, I love crazy formats. This is certainly an obscure one by today's standards, but it was a big one in the 70s. I'm reading the comments here and I'm distracted. Meat's muffled. I think Chris is joking around here. But yeah, this is what they looked like a little brick. And the problem with these guys was that they had as I said, the 4 stereo tracks. And to make best use of the time on the tape, the limited amount of time on the tape, a song would run out mid-track, and then you'd hear this clackety-clack sound as the machine moved down to the next track, and then it would resume. But there was an interruption. And, it's almost like you take an album and it's like butchering it. But I'm sure Tim will have more to say on this as well. My memories of these also include blank 8-track tapes. My parents had an 8-track tape player recorder. And we did have tapes with like my sister and myself, our childhood voices on our tapes. But those tapes, they're gone. My folks must have tossed them. That could be Tim. Okay.
Wow.
Technical difficulties.
Oh.
I'm going to send him the link again. He says he thinks he's in, but I don't see him.
Oh.
So I'm going to send him the invite link again. As you know, this worked out fine in the summertime.
Yeah.
Because you've met Tim before. Yeah. That was when we did the top cover artists, meaning cover art, album cover art. We did that list show, and that was a really fascinating list.
Yes.
We saw basically no repeated artists. I don't think any of us repeated an artist. But think about it. There were 3 of us plus Dave Lismy, and that alone, doing list of 11, that's 33 different cover artists that we talked about.
Yep.
And my mom confirms we threw out all the old 8-track tapes. That's unfortunate. Wow. There's Tim. Okay. We'll just wait until he's fully connected here. Tim, if you are ready to go, give me the thumbs up. If you're good to go. I think he's good to go. Okay. Please, welcome to our show. Esteemed East Coast radio legend, according to Martin Popoff, Mr. Tim Durling.
The LeBrain Train is proud to present Tim Durling.
There we go.
Hey, buddy.
Hi.
Yeah, tap the mic for sound. Hi, Aaron. Hi, Mike. How you guys doing tonight?
Hi.
Great. How are you?
I'm great. The funny thing, the link worked that you sent me before, but then I scrolled down and it has this blue button that says click to enter studio. Who knew?
There you go. You just have to follow the instructions on the screen and you are in like Flynn.
Yep.
Works just about every time.
We were just discussing the last time that we talked to you, when we did the top cover artists show.
Yeah, that's right. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think we had no overlap, if I recall correctly. We had little to no overlap on any of our lists.
I think that we might have had an overlap of maybe bands.
Maybe Hugh Syme. If anybody, it would have been Hugh Syme. But
somewhere I have it written down.
It's you probably wrote it down and
I made the chart
on the site. Yeah. No, I posted that.
I made the chart, yeah. Oh, okay. Well then.
Aaron, you know
Yep.
Tim, and Tim, you know Aaron. Except,
Yes, over the internet, of course. Yes.
but things have changed because now we can talk about these, which we couldn't really talk about before. You were still getting your book organized, really, but now you've got the Kickstarter up. The address is below. I guess we should go to some of my pre-prepared questions here, but why don't you start by telling us, first of all, Martin Popoff is apparently the guy who twisted your arm into writing a book. How did that conversation take place? What was his reasoning?
So earlier this year, I think this was way back in January. This has been a long time coming. Martin was kind enough to appear on my show, Tim's Final Confessions, and the topic was 8 tracks. And I had, I didn't have the book in mind, really, even though the nugget for it was way, way, way in the back of my head. I just wanted to pick Martin's brain because he had done a show. I think he did a show on, I don't know if it was Sea of Tranquility or maybe it was a Contrarian show where he dug out a bunch of 8 tracks that he had. And a lot of them, some of them were sealed. And I thought, well, there's a guy that might talk some 8 tracks. And I've been a fan of Martin's writing from his very first book, Riff Kills Man. I got that back in 1994. My copy of that is just about falling apart, right? So it was an honor.
As it should be, yep.
Yeah, right there. Yeah. It was an honor for Martin to come on the show. I took that as a great compliment. And we talked about 8 tracks. And I don't think he was familiar with the concept of RCOs or record club only 8 tracks, these ones that came out in the later 80s. A lot of people aren't. And the more we talked about it, he said, someone should do a book on this. There's a book here. So he didn't say me, but I thought, you know what? If Martin Popoff thinks that there's a book idea here, there's a book idea here.
Yeah.
So
hell yeah.
What the heck? What have I got to lose? So my good friend Matt Phillips, who's guested on my show many, many times, couldn't have done the book without him because he designed it for his company, Go North Design, and it looks amazing. I sent you some sample pages, Mike. It's very professional looking. I can't take any credit for the look of the book other than me saying, oh, no, put that up there instead of down here. Or, it looks amazing. It looks very professional. And, but, it's the type of thing, and I think a lot of people that have self-published books that really weren't planning on, going into being a writer, the only reason that they put a book out is something that they're passionate about and no one else has done it. I would have far preferred, it would have been an awful lot easier to just buy a book on this subject. But you know what? We scoured the internet. There's nothing like this. So, I think we're on to something unique here.
Hell yeah. I
Very
100%
cool.
agree. How does it feel to be an author?
Well, that's such a strange, that's it almost seems pretentious to refer to myself. Yes, I'm an author. Yes, the pipe and the overcoat and the slippers.
Start drinking your tea with your pinky out. Yeah.
I should buy a boat. In a lot of ways, I just scribbled some thoughts down that I've had, and a lot of people, including yourself, generously contributed some content to this. We finally get to unravel that mystery of what does the inside of an 8-track taste like, and no spoilers.
You'll have to read the book, Aaron. You'll have to read the book.
And you know what? It's funny that version of Kiss Alive, Mike, that you held up, I'm pretty sure that's the same as mine. Yeah, that looks very, very similar. It's a Canadian copy.
It is 1975 Canada, Quality Records Limited.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question about that.
Even distributed by Polygram at that point. They were distributed by Quality Records.
Right. Which are more known for like TV compilations and things like that.
Exactly. They were like a KTEL company. Yeah.
Aaron, what was your question?
Oh, that Kiss copy that you have there. You say you got that from Jeff.
Yes, from Jeff Stephen.
I wonder if that was in the giant box of 8 tracks that I sent to him. I must have put 50 of them in a box and sent them out to him one time out in Kingston. Because they got this whole collection of rock stuff, and nobody was buying them. So I used I bought them as staff, and I put them all in a box, and I shipped them to Kingston. So I just wonder if he thought it had a better home with you. That's cool.
I just want to say, I feel like I'm running a telethon here, but we just had a book. We just sold a book. Just now.
I just saw that. Thank you very much. That's awesome.
That was Mr. Super Deeks from Scotch on the Rocks.
Thank you very much, Deke. Thank you.
There's Ralph Fatale from New York. Hey, Eddie.
I appreciate all the support.
I was going to say, just for context, Aaron works in a secondhand shop. So I'm assuming that this gigantic box of 8 tracks came to you via that. Am I?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they got a whole thing, a whole raft of them in. A lot of it was junk. You could tell some of them were broken. But they had a whole lot of really cool stuff. And I knew Jeff was into that. So I didn't know you at the time, Tim, or I would have sent them to you.
Yeah. You know what? If Max Webster Universal Juveniles is in that pile, I don't want to know.
I don't remember.
That's the only Max Webster 8-track I need, and I'll have all the studio albums.
Wow.
Okay. We have to check with Jeff. I don't remember because it's possible. There was Alice Cooper and there was all kinds of stuff in there. It was all rock stuff. So
that, here's the thing, Mike, and this leads into some of the content of Unspooled. So Kiss Alive on 8-track, that's very cool. Do you have Lick It Up and Animalize?
No, sir, I do not.
Because
those albums came out in the 80s.
They did. They did. They exist on 8-track. And, my nephew Will, who's also been on a lot of my episodes, likes to tease me about this because I could just kick myself because I passed a buy it now. About a couple of years ago now on eBay, someone was selling an Animalize 8-track. And I just couldn't pull the trigger on it. I couldn't justify spending $150. But you know something?
What?
I wish I did. I would have Animalize on 8-track now, and then I'd only be missing Creatures of the Night and Lick It Up on 8-track. I even have The Elder on 8-track, which isn't easy to find.
We're going to deep dive into this a little bit more, I think.
This is super. You know what? I fully prepared to super geek out, and I'm all for it.
I'm going to stick to. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say I want to find out about $150 for an 8-track.
Right. I want to get there too.
Nuts.
You know what? This is the funny thing about 8-tracks, depending on what they are and the scarcity of them. So for those I don't want anybody to be wondering, what is he talking about 8-tracks in 83 and 84? So if people remember 8-tracks in stores, and I'll ask both of you guys, I'm guessing we're all in and around the same age. I'm 47.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And when do you guys have any conscious memory of? No, we're talking about 8-track cartridges.
Yeah.
We definitely talk about 8-track tapes. And do you guys remember when you stopped seeing them in stores?
No, but I can definitively tell you when I thought about it after I read your excerpts that you sent me. I can definitively tell you that when I really started getting seriously into music in the mid to late 80s, like 86, 87, 88, and I was frequenting A&A Records and Zellers, I never saw them there. If I saw them anywhere, they would have been in like a dump bin at Sears or something like that, but definitely not when I went to my A&A Records. Exactly. Now, right. I did want to bring up one thing, but I'll say it later. I did find one in a store in the 90s from a local band that must have printed up some 8-track tapes as a gimmick. But I wanted to talk about that a bit later.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a really small town. I'm talking 350 people. We had to drive 15 minutes to get to a town of 1,500 people. So I didn't spend a whole lot of time in record shops in the 80s. But so it would have been like Mike said, like a Zellers or something like that. Maybe if we were in town, we used to go to Kitchener for Christmas shopping, get down there a couple times a year, maybe. But I don't specifically remember looking for them either. I was all cassette as a kid. So I don't know.
Yeah.
So I missed all that.
I have vague memories. Yeah, when I started getting into music, when I started buying music for myself when I was 13 or so, it was all about cassettes. That's all any of my friends, all we had. We had Walkmans, we had cassettes, you know.
They were cheap.
You know, they were portable.
Yeah.
And you could, you know, it didn't matter how loud you played your headphones, you could damage your ears, which I think I did.
Yes.
But with 8-tracks, I do vaguely remember seeing them in like department stores.
Right.
I do remember seeing them marked down like, you know, 50 cents and just trying to get rid of them. But I also remember seeing them when I was really, really little, and they'd be in these shelves that were behind plastic. And if you wanted one, you had to get someone to unlock it and pull one out, because they came in sort of like, do you remember when they, you know, they'd have those the long boxes for CDs, or they'd have those things that cassettes would come in. There were anti-theft mechanism. They had to put. They had those for 8-tracks too. So if you wanted one, not that I ever bought one, you had to ask for them. But at a certain point, he just never thought about it anymore. And little by little, everybody I knew just had cassettes. And so I would have thought that 8-tracks went away from retail stores in the very early 80s, 1981, 1982. And that's what I thought for many years, until about 1995, 1996, I discovered a website called 8trackheaven.com, which you can still go to 8trackheaven.com, the number 8, but it doesn't exist. It's not active anymore. It's not active anymore, but there's an archived version of it. Well, that's when I discovered that, yes, the early 80s was the demise of the 8-track tape in retail stores, but we all know what Columbia House is, right? Everybody knows what Columbia House is. And to a lesser extent, there was the RCA Music Service, which later became BMG Music Service.
Yes.
They continued to offer 8-tracks, especially Columbia House, all the way through November of 1988.
Now that answers my question that I was about to ask you. Because we joined Columbia House in the spring of 89. So that's why I have no memory of ever seeing an 8-track in a Columbia House catalog.
Also, Mike, the other thing is that in all of my research, which I'll say is pretty extensive, trying to find out things, which isn't easy to find, that's Columbia House in the U.S. I have never seen a Canadian 8-track newer than 1984.
Okay.
The newest Canadian 8-track that I have, I spent a fair bit of money for, but it's Grace Under Pressure.
Rush.
Yes. So I have Grace Under Pressure on 8-track. I've never seen anything newer than 1984, though, in Canada. That doesn't mean that there aren't. But the thing about these is that even for the biggest of albums, they're probably very, very small quantities were made. That's another thing that makes these things so collectible. So when, you know, it sounds ridiculous paying $150 for an 8-track, but when's the last time you saw Kiss Animalize on 8-track? It's all it's all about what album it is, right? And the thing that gets me about these is that they still seem out of time to me. Like the fact that 8-tracks, the fact that in Columbia House in the US, okay, from 1986, starting around 1986 through to 1988, you had 4 options for formats. You had vinyl, cassettes, 8-tracks, and CDs.
True.
As a matter of fact, there is one chapter dedicated to the only known box set that exists in all 4 formats.
See, this is the kind of stuff I love, and I'm really glad that you wrote this book, and I'm really glad to have backed it. I cannot wait to get it in my hands for this kind of stuff. I want to take a reader question here, because you triggered a question here about a collectible tape. Stevie Ray Vaughan's Texas Flood, apparently one of the last 8-tracks made in late 82 for the I guess the store releases. Do you have any knowledge of that?
Well, Texas Flood came out in 85.
Oh, okay. Well,
so,
that reader. Okay, let's hang on a second. Hang on. Shame.
Yeah,
okay, go ahead.
Great album.
Wait a second. No. I'm sorry. That's not right. Texas Flood came out in 83. Texas Flood was I'm not terribly savvy with Stevie Ray Vaughan. I think Texas Flood was his first album. That's the one that had Pride and Joy on it. Then there was Couldn't Stand the Weather, and then there was Soul to Soul. That was so Texas Flood came out in '83. No, it definitely was not the last. It definitely was not the last. This is the problem, right? Like, you know, Google is only as good as the information given, right?
Right.
These are factual. I've got pictures to prove some of these. Like I've got a page. I think I sent you the page that's got 8 tracks from 86, 87, 88. Mind blowing.
I wanted, you know what? I just want to spoil one thing. 8 tracks in 88. That blew my mind. You've got the photos of 2 albums that you own on. That's all your personal stuff in the book, correct?
I don't own those 2.
Okay.
I posted them a few days. I don't own those 2. Those 2 that you're talking about are the last 2 known RCOs that both came out on the same day, November 15th, 1988. They're both greatest hits collections.
Yeah.
They're both greatest hits collections. And that's as far as I'll go with that. But just to give you an idea, I hope this doesn't look too bad, but I'll show you some of the ones that I have.
Okay.
Just so people can see that these things exist. So I don't have any from 1988, but I do have one from 1987.
Okay.
Fleetwood Mac. Tango in the Night.
I'm just going to do a zoom in on you here.
Yep.
There we go.
Fleetwood Mac. Tango in the Night. 1987.
Crazy.
So, wow. Let me see. Okay, so Mike, you and I both share a love for this band. Check this out.
That is Journey, Raised on Radio. 86, right?
86. Yep. These are both the Columbia House. Here's another one from 86. This one looks different because it's not Columbia House. It's RCA Music Service.
Okay.
This is Kansas Power. This is from 1986.
Oh, wow. MCA.
And one of my favorite Kansas albums too. Let's see what else we got here. Well, I'll show you the one I already talked about, just because they're one of my favorite bands.
Rush.
Race Under Pressure.
Yeah. 84.
84. So this is the newest Canadian one I have. So yeah, they're out there, and there's a lot of them on my wish list. But what I tried to do to the best of my ability with this book is that it's not just about these, because and that's what my original idea was way back when I thought there should be a book about it. But Martin suggested, and he's quite right, mixing it with personal stories. So the book goes from 1981 through 1988. So there's 4 chapters, or as I like to say, 4 programs for each year, like an 8-track tape. At the end of each of those years, there's a list of all of the known Record Club only 8 tracks. So, for instance, in 1981, there aren't that many, because most of the 8 tracks released in 1981 had a retail counterpart, which you can immediately, anybody that's ever bought cassettes, even CDs from Columbia House, you can spot a Columbia House from a retail one quite easily.
It literally looks like somebody pasted a little label over the information, the text on the back, and pasted over manufactured by Columbia House in Scarborough, Ontario.
Yeah. And in the case of the U.S. Columbia House 8 tracks, no matter what label they were on originally, they tended to all look the same. They wanted that uniformity. And RCA Music Service did the same thing. So what they did was the Columbia House 8 tracks, because Columbia House were a division of CBS Records, they all look like CBS tapes. And the RCA Music Service ones, no matter what originating label they were on, they all look like they were on RCA.
Okay, interesting.
I'll give you another example, like just to show you, like one of the first really rare ones I managed to find.
Aha, Pyromania, 83.
Nice. Now here's the crazy thing about this. I found out later this is not strictly RCO.
Oh.
There's a retail version of this.
Interesting. In 83.
It's January 20th, 1983. So 1983, there are about 6 known retail 8 tracks. I think there's a Kenny Rogers one. I think there's an Alabama one. A lot of country music artists. All of their albums came out on 8 track in that time period. Like pretty much all of their albums. Okay. When it comes to like harder rock stuff, it's kind of hit and miss. There's funny inconsistencies. Things like, this is mind blowing that the ones exist at all, but Rat, The Rat EP from 1983 and Invasion of Your Privacy from 1985 exist on 8-track. You can go to discogs.com and search those and see pictures of them and see the track listing and the order of the songs, because they always mix the songs up. But there's no known 8-track for Out of the Cellar, the one in between. So it's weird things like that.
Which is their biggest album.
I know. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist, though. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, even in the book, I said, this is to the best of my knowledge. And you may, the day that it gets printed, may find like 50 more that exist. This is to the best of my knowledge. I never guessed. I never supposed. I had to see a picture of it, an actual confirmed picture of it, either on Discogs or eBay or some other source. And that's what went on the list, the year-end list in this book. I really wanted to document as best as I could. And I feel quite confident in saying, even though it may not be complete, I don't know how we'd ever really know.
Right.
It's the most complete one that's in a book form so far.
I'm going to ditch my pre-formatted questions here and just kind of freestyle it, because I'm fascinated here. How does it feel to be a pioneer in documenting this stuff for real? I mean, like, you are creating the source material that hopefully one day will result in a better Wikipedia page for a lot of these albums, right?
It's like I said, it's one of those things I just wish somebody had done it. Not that this hasn't been fun, not that this hasn't been a true labor of love, but it has been a lot of work, and a lot of time put into it. But I've always been organized as far as, if you look behind me, I've got a bunch of records. You can see cassettes on my wall. They're all in alphabetical order. My CDs are all in alphabetical order. I'll tell you, when AC/DC put out a new album, it was like, oh.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. So,
and hey, do you do it this way? Oh, go ahead.
No, I want to hear what Aaron's going to.
Sometimes I'll let new things that I buy, I'll wait till I get about a couple dozen, and then I'll put them where they're supposed to go.
Yeah, that's what I used to say too.
Yeah.
And then I ended up with this mess behind me, which is not organized at all. And but Aaron, I think you were going to ask him if
just for alphabetization. This right here is my Rolling Stones. I have them all in a separate box because Stones.
Because it's the Stones.
Right. And so but when they were in the regular collection, they were under RO for Rolling Stones. But within the Rolling Stones, they are chronological.
That's the way.
Yes.
That's the
only
way.
So it starts with England's newest hit makers, and it goes right through to one of the From the Vault things. Or actually, no, the most recent I have is the reissue of the Goat's Head Soup. So I just wondered if you did that as well. Like, it's alphabetized, but it's also chronological within.
I
within
do it
each,
chronologically, but if I've got multiple versions of the same album, I put them together. I don't.
Yes.
I don't do that.
agree.
I just put them.
Yeah.
I do as well.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, like my Black Sabbath, I might have a single disc version of this and then a double disc version. I just put them together, even though the double disc came out in like 2008.
Oh, I don't. I do it by the release date. So I would have Black Sabbath, and then way down the line I would have the 2-disc reissue, right? Because that's when it came out.
That's so fun. Like that's so
all
cool
methods are valid.
We all do it differently. See, if I did that to mine, I would look at it and think they look out of order to me, because I've got close to the edge there, and then close to the edge over here. But I understand what you're saying, because it is a release from whatever year it is. It's whatever you're comfortable with. And I
also don't have that many. So
the same thing with my 8-tracks. They're all in alphabetical order. Here, I'll show you, just without digging a bunch of them out. I'll just show you. There they are behind me.
Nice.
Yep, there they are.
So
yes.
I don't know if you can see these.
Yeah, we can see everything.
Specifically. Yeah.
Are those specific holders, like they're slots for the tapes?
Okay, so I work in radio. So the black ones were made for radio stations, and they were made for holding these, which is simply called a cart, which is essentially an 8-track with not much tape on it. they were made for commercials. Sometimes they were made for songs or jingles. That's one I managed to grab from the archives. And those black cases, they were going to throw them out. So I took as many of them as I could find. And they're made to hold 12. There's I don't know how many I've got. Each one holds 12, and I just put them all together. The wooden ones are just CD cases that I purposed for putting the rest of my 8-tracks in.
Cool. Okay.
I'm just going to take a few reader questions here, if you don't mind, because they're piling up. Do you know if Metallica's Kill 'Em All and or Ride the Lightning exist on 8-track?
Not officially. I like there are people that make 8-tracks of albums that didn't necessarily exist back in the day. There's an Instagram feed called Dead Media Tapes, and this guy does specialized ones for people.
Okay.
Makes slipcases for them and everything, but no, not officially. Although it's one of those things where I say I don't think they did.
Right.
But here's why I can't say for sure. Like, gun to my head, I can't say for sure because again, 1986, you could still get 8-tracks, you could get compact discs. So Metallica were on Elektra Records. So here, one of the most rare 8-tracks, and I don't have it, but I'd love to have, is Dawkins Under Lock and Key, which came out in 1985. They were on Elektra. No, they weren't as heavy as Metallica, but they weren't exactly a mainstream pop band either. They weren't. They weren't like Def Leppard or Bon Jovi.
No.
So I have to wonder. Master of Puppets was top 30 and went platinum in 1986. It was a big album.
So who knows?
I can't say for sure, but here's the beautiful part about that. If it did, I already know what it would look like because they all looked the same. They just take the cover art and then the rest of it, they would all look the same. So I really don't think there are any Metallica 8-tracks, even though they came out in the time period when, you know, there could be. I just don't think so. And you'll find that as the 80s went on, there weren't as many really heavy bands, but there were a few. Like there's a few Priest, there's a few Ozzy. But they tended to be like, you know, Foreigner and Journey and bands like that had 8-tracks, like superstar rock bands. But, you know, I'm constantly surprised. I remember the first time, and I do have to give another shout out to a Facebook page called 8-Track Fixation because they really solidified my knowledge of what RCOs were out there.
Okay.
And it was on that page that I saw the first Bon Jovi album on 8-track.
Huh.
And I actually commented at the time, I have lived to see a Bon Jovi 8-track. As far as I know, it's just that first one. And no, I've never seen it for sale, and I'd love to get my hands on one. But, you know, some of my, like, I've got grails, you know. I've got grails that I'd love to find, like my favorite bands. I'd love to get all of the 8-tracks are available. Because with my favorite bands, I like to have all of their albums in as many formats as I can. I'd love to have 5150. That's the last Van Halen 8-track. I don't have that one. You know, I'd love to have Rush Power Windows because until about 3 years ago, I thought Grace Under Pressure was the last Rush 8-track, but no, Power Windows came out on 8-track. You know, I'd love to have all those Kiss ones. I'd love to have Aerosmith's Done with Mirrors. Yeah, it goes on and on and on, right? Like I don't have all the ones that I want, right? But that's part of the fun of the search.
Well, fortunately, this guy will keep an eye out for you. I know that. He's really good with stuff like that.
I also have a list on the KMA, the Keeps Me Alive webpage, called the Master Grail list, where fine gentlemen like yourself, fine people like yourself can submit. Just let me know what you're looking for. And I put it up there, and then all the readers have access to that. So like our readers in Glasgow or our readers in Australia or our wherever they are, they can, because you never know what you're going to see in your local, right? And you can help somebody out, and it does work.
Yeah, the trouble is that, you know, people, and that's great. That's great. People know what these things are more or less worth, and I'm not made of money.
Right.
But you know what? The best, and I wrote about this in the book, the biggest surprise I've ever had was about 4.5 years ago now. my daughter and I took my daughter to see Panic at the Disco in Portland, Maine, which is about 5-6 hours away from here. We're right on the border of Maine and up here in New Brunswick. And they had some fantastic pawn shops there. And I walked into this one and I could see on the wall, there were all these RCOs. I could tell right away because they all looked the same. And I actually froze for a second. And Marley was like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah." Because I got thinking, what am I going to find? Do I have enough money? What if I just walked into? Mercifully, actually, I was a little disappointed. There were 80s era 8-tracks there. Wasn't anything I was looking for except for one. I found Foreigner's 1984 album, Agent Provocateur, and none of them had prices written on them. So I went up to the counter. I found a couple of records too, and I said, "How much for this?" And he said $1. And I said, "Okay." And I didn't let on. So that's my kind of dream, is to stumble upon something like that where someone has a bunch of these, but they don't realize what they have.
Well, the beauty of it is, with him working at like a secondhand store, it all gets, you know how it works.
Yeah,
they all get thrown in a bin, right? But
we're all big music geeks here. So Aaron, you would know, if something came in from the 80s and you'd look at it and go, "This must be one of those RCOs."
Every once in a while, he'll send me a text message and it'll be like, "Hey, Mike, do you need this CD? Our store has it for $1 or whatever." And it's like Vinnie Vincent Invasion or something rare, you know?
Well, I'm going to break your heart a little bit because I have never paid too much attention to 8-tracks. And I've worked there for 5 years, right? And I've gone through a lot of them. And when you mentioned Kiss Animalized, for example, it's really likely that I threw it in the bin for 99 cents and somebody grabbed it, and because they all sell for 99 cents.
Right.
Yeah.
And
so that's
Yeah.
what happened with that Foreigner one. It's like,
Yeah.
I just bought an 8-track
It's
from
possible.
1984 for $1. It hardly had any bubbling on the label either. Like, it was in really good shape.
Yeah.
You know what? That leads me into one of my scripted questions that I was going to ask you about.
Sure.
The quality, when you're buying a tape, the quality of the tape, how do you determine that?
Yes.
Is it based entirely on visual appearance?
Well, here, I'm going to give my personal answer. First, I'll give the general answer, then I'll give my personal answer.
Okay.
Then maybe I'll do it the other way. I don't actually play these things. I don't actually play these things. I don't have a player. I don't want a player, because if you're actually into these things, and people are, and they're hardcore, they take a lot of work. They take constant maintenance.
Right.
You got to take the players apart and oil them, and take the tapes apart and re-spool them, and I would rather have them up on my wall, look at them while I'm listening to the CD or the record. I just think they're really, really cool. So when I go to buy something, I basically grade the quality on how crappy is the label. On the other hand, you don't you don't want it to look too perfect, because then it's probably a counterfeit if it looks too perfect. But it's pretty hard to fake the sort of I call it bubbling, but have the label along the side and it'll kind of go like this in the middle of it.
Yeah.
They just do that over time. It's pretty hard to fake that. You wouldn't do that knowingly. You can tell.
Mine here has a little bit on just a little bit on the edge. You can kind of see a little bit on the edge there.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's a nice smooth label.
It's in really good shape. Yeah.
I'll show you one. Or you can tell if something's been in the back of somebody's window and had a lot of sun.
Right.
Because you know what the album's supposed to look like, and it's a lot brighter. This one, for example.
Hey.
Hey.
If you look at the record, that's a lot deeper orange or red than this is. This has been out in the sun. It's still in pretty good shape now.
Yeah, it's just the color.
Yeah.
The label itself is physically in good shape.
Yeah. And then there's other examples of, if it's a super rare tape and it's really cheap, I might get it as, what I call a placeholder until I find a better copy.
Yes. I've done that with vinyl myself.
Yeah.
Bought a $4 copy and waited till I could find one that was in better shape.
Exactly. Upgrade.
Right.
Okay. So while we've been talking, I looked up Jeff's blog and I found the post where he posted about the box that I sent him. And there were 2 Max Websters in there that I can see. He posted a picture.
Okay.
High class in
Borrowed shoes.
Borrowed shoes.
Yeah, and live magnetic air.
Yeah, I have those.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
but there were 48 of them.
Wow.
Cheap Trick, Deep Purple, Alice Cooper, Jethro Tull, Kiss. Oh, I can't read that.
Well, he probably sent me the Kiss.
Queen.
Yeah.
Well, no, there's more than one Kiss there.
Oh, he kept some Kiss.
There's Styx. There's the Rolling Stones. Oh, there's a Max Webster that I think it's just the first one.
Okay, self-titled. Yeah.
Oh, you know what? There's a glare on that, but I wonder if that doesn't say. We gotta email Jeff because that might be the universal one.
What?
I can't zoom.
It would have a
I
black
can't
and
zoom
yellow.
in.
It would have like a black and yellow Kim Mitchell on the front.
See, when I zoom in, it pixelates out, so I can't really see it. But
Okay.
Yeah, it's a
I'll find out.
cover. Yeah, that's right.
Because I have.
It's funny you mentioned Cheap Trick because in 2009, when they put out their album, The Latest, they put it out on 8-track.
Nice.
So this is an 8-track in 2009.
Okay, so that leads me to one of my other questions I had for you, which is when a modern 8-track tape is made, is that made with like new old stock that's still hanging around? Like or are people still manufacturing tapes?
Okay. You know what that just made me think of? Is the Bob and Doug skit where they talk about making records. They go, do they take like old albums and put new people on them?
That's right. I remember that sketch.
We could have done that ourselves. I don't know how. That's a good point. Anyway, but I digress. I think probably what they did was repurpose. They might have taken old 8-tracks, and anyone who's worked in radio back in the day when we used those cards, there's a thing called a bulk eraser, which is kind of like an iron, like a clothes iron, and you'd press a little bit. It was this big, heavy box and metal, and it was a big magnet. And what you do is you'd press a button, and you'd run side, upside. You'd erase it essentially. You'd erase it so you could use it again. Because if you didn't do that, when you recorded something over it, you might hear a little bit of what used to be on it.
Yes.
So they might be doing that. I can't see them manufacturing new 8-track, like actual spools of tape to go inside one. So I'm really not sure. I know there's been some. I know. I think last year Dolly Parton put out a Christmas album on 8-track. I think Mark Ronson put out his last album on 8-track. Now probably just limited edition,
right.
But. I just think that there's a lot of people are putting new albums out on cassette too, which I think is awesome. So I have a great affection for cassettes too.
At least with cassettes, although the devices aren't very good, you can go to a store and buy a cassette player, although the mechanisms are crap. With 8-tracks, now you've informed us that if you wanted to buy a vintage 8-track player and refurbish it yourself, there's a tremendous amount of maintenance that goes with that. Which I didn't realize.
Don't just buy one and stick an 8-track tape in that's 30 years old or more, because it probably will wind up. You can get them to work pretty good, but my hat's off to these people that put that time in, but I just don't see the point myself. I just like collecting them,
Also, it stands to reason that if you're going to play one of your treasured tapes, there's always a chance you could damage it irreparably. And that's not a risk I'd be personally willing to take with a $150 copy of Kiss Animalize.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You're right.
I used to have, in the early 90s when I started collecting these things, I had a little portable 8-track player. It was a little red thing, and it was funny because it actually said it could plug into a boat, which I thought was funny. And I used to actually listen to some, and I found a copy of Queen 2 in really, really good shape. And I put it in, and instantly I got eaten up. I'm like, I'm not doing that anymore. Yeah. So there you go.
I mean, it's a physical format, and, the mechanisms that are inside the tape that enable it to spin, and the tape itself degrades over time. There's so many variables here. And, anybody who's played a cassette certainly knows the experience of that getting chewed. Guaranteed.
Well, if you think about how thin, tape inside of a cassette is thin, but it's got one thing on one side, one thing on the other.
Right.
The width of tape in an 8-track is probably, 10 centimeters. I'm just guessing. I'm not really sure. But because there were 4 programs, that 10 centimeters, say, divide that by 4, and that's how wide your track was as it was playing.
Yeah.
And because they were so close together, that's also why, if anybody remembers, after a while, you'd start to hear 2 songs at the same time.
Yeah. One in reverse, I think, sometimes. Because
the recording head, the playback head would get all wonky. And, it's a weird technology, these things. So I'm so fascinated by them. And, the wedding cake, as people call it, inside of an 8-track, because there's one spool of tape and then there's a smaller one on top of it, like a tier.
Yeah.
And I think you can see a picture of that inside the book. There's also we took some pictures where I'm covered in tape.
Yes, I love that picture.
We went to Value Village and bought a few sacrificial lamb tapes that we could take apart. There's a lot of tape inside one of those, especially if you get like a double live album that's on one tape, like your live tape. If you hold up Kiss Alive, let's say you had a copy of I'm trying to think of a pretty short album like Fair Warning by Van Halen, you could feel the difference in the weight because there's that much more tape inside of it.
Twice as much.
Yeah. Or if you get one of those K-Tel ones where they ram 22 songs onto one.
Yeah. I'm having a blast here learning so much about 8-tracks, but I do want to skip to... I just really like this question because we're all kindred spirits here and we're all collectors. And in one of the excerpts you sent me, you said it's all Bon Jovi's fault that you became a collector. And there's a story in the book. I won't regurgitate it because I don't want to spoil it. But there's a photograph on that page that you sent me. And in that photograph is a 1986 G1 Transformers Ultra Magnus figure.
Yeah.
So, and one of the things that attracted you to collecting in the first place was when you saw the concept of a checklist, collect them all, collect all the albums. Yeah.
Hold on.
Oh my God, he doesn't have it.
You just reminded me of something. Now, if I can find it, that's the question. Talk amongst yourselves. Crap, where did it go?
I know.
I have the soundtrack of the
Transformers
animated movie. My kids gave it to me for Christmas one year. It's not an original, but it's very, very cool.
Kick-Axe is on that thing.
What's that?
Kick-Axe have 2 songs on that thing.
Now, in Canada,
Heavy Metal Shuffle.
In the States, they had to call themselves Spectre General for some reason.
Yes, they did that because I believe it might have been Spencer Proffer's decision that the name Kick-Axe was not appropriate on a children's cartoon CD. So
do you remember that movie? Do you remember the movie?
Yeah.
Planet's about to blow up, and Spike says, "Oh shit! What are we going to do now?"
That's right.
Here it is.
There it is. I've got the same one on CD.
That's fun. Stan Bush Touch. What a great song that is.
Oh, brilliant song. There's another one, Dare, that's also great.
Yeah. And then a really heavy one. The group's called NRG. It was Instruments of Destruction. I have no idea who was in that band, but that was a good song.
And there's a version of Hunger by King Cobra that is done by Kick-Axe, but I believe that actually came out before
it was actually written. It was actually written by Kick-Axe.
That's right. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of weird stuff going on at that time where the singer George Christian was in consideration to be in Black Sabbath, and Spencer Proffer was balancing all. It's a mass confusion period.
It's probably
for that
around
band.
the same time that he was thinking about Ron Keel too.
Exactly the same time.
Yeah.
And if you look, all these albums he was involved with, like that Wasp album, The Last Command, there's songs that overlap between all of these different artists. It's bizarre.
Weird.
But
this is so cool though, man. This is the type of rabbit hole I love going down.
well, I don't want to lose track of my original question.
Okay.
So rewinding the tape back to right. Back to that 1986 picture and that page that you sent me where he says, blame it on Bon Jovi. And you're talking about that, the idea of collecting them all.
Yes.
Well, Transformers came with a checklist on the inside of every, and I'm just wondering, what was the factor that made it go in that direction instead of Transformers or something else with a checklist?
I was, I guess I could describe myself as maybe a late bloomer.
Yeah, me too.
Or as Kim Mitchell goes on to say, I was ugly as a child.
Pimples on my pimples.
There you go. At a certain point, I guess you could say I grew out of them. But then years later, when I had kids, my son started liking Transformers. So it was so cool to share some of my old ones with him. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I do remember, though, that the actual, like the vehicle ones, the bigger vehicle ones, there you go.
That's a Magnus
were
trailer.
So expensive. So
yeah.
So what I ended up with is a lot of the mini cars, like Bumblebee and Cliff Jumper and those ones, right? But yeah, you'd see these checklists, and a little bit like music, like the music stores, or the department stores. I didn't have a Toys R Us near me when I was a kid. And I didn't have a lot of money when I, allowance or some of their birthdays and Christmas presents. You couldn't see all of them in stores at any one given time.
Most of them weren't in there was no way to, like Kiss. A lot of them weren't in print at the same time. Like the solo albums, you couldn't get those on cassette at that time.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah,
and The Elder didn't come out on CD until 1989.
I know.
So. But yeah, the idea of collecting them all, I mean, I can rewind back further than that. When I was probably, 7, 8, 9 years old, I liked the Hardy Boys books. I wanted to find all of those.
You mentioned that.
It just seemed right. It just seemed like the right thing to do. Why not try to get them all?
It's very interesting to meet somebody with the exact same malfunction that I have.
There's three of us,
thing, right?
Look at hockey cards.
Yeah.
Most people,
Star Wars cards,
people would hear an album and go, I like that album. And that's the end of it. For me, it's like, do they have any others?
Yeah.
And
go even further.
You have peaks and valleys in a band's career where they have one or two albums that sell so many more copies than all of the rest. Luckily, I never collected cards per se, because I remember, like, when I was really little, I remember collecting Dukes of Hazzard cards. And you'd end up with, do you remember there was a set of those and it was probably other TV shows and things that did this too, but you'd have the cards and they'd have like a scene from the show, or they'd have one character, but on the back, it would be part of a bigger image.
Yes. The puzzle. I called it a puzzle.
You could never find them all.
Right. Yeah.
Especially if like me, like, Aaron was talking about, I grew up in a very rural area. So yeah, you were limited, right?
Oh, I would always came with that nasty gum.
Right, the stick of gum.
Terrible.
Oh,
terrible. Yeah,
I would get on my bike. I would ride to the local little shortstop, and usually have enough money for 2 packs of cards. Like 50 cents each, maybe 25 cents each. I don't remember. But you'd eat the crummy gum on the way home, and you'd open your packs of cards and be like, got it, need it. And I think the first one for me that I collected incomplete was the Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. Cool.
And
you just made me think of some comics were the same thing.
Yeah.
G.I. Joe.
I have
G.I. Joe. I had a whole bunch of G.I. Joes. Yeah. Before I was in Transformers, I was into G.I. Joes.
I used to have stacks of doubles of hockey cards, and I would trade them with people for like one Wayne Gretzky card. You can have this whole stack of cards. Like they're all doubles. I don't want them. You can have all these other guys, but I have a stack of Wayne Gretzky cards from the early years, because I would trade away all my doubles to get the guy I wanted.
And again, like, this brings me to a point where I did try to make in the book too. Before the internet, you were really, if you lived in a rural area and you didn't have pen pals anywhere, and you were limited.
Yeah.
You were limited, and that made it, when you did find something you were looking for, you cherished that. You just couldn't believe that you found it. You just, I remember, back, you're talking about Bon Jovi. I remember when I saw the Wanted Dead or Alive maxi single cassette.
Yeah.
That had a picture of the band. They were all like in Western gear, which I think, trivia note, that was supposed to be the title of the album. That was supposed to be the front cover before they decided to flip it wet. So they had that, which is probably just the 45 single sleeve. And I thought I had all their albums when I saw, well, I did. But when I saw that, I bought it, and I'm like, I got something nobody else has. Well, that's not true, but you never knew when these things were going to come out. I always used to say, you don't find these things, they find you.
You're breaking up a little bit, but we can still hear you fine. Just your image is a little choppy. I remember seeing that Bon Jovi cassette.
That's called Village Internet.
Village Internet. He's still out in the wilderness. My experience with that particular cassette is seeing it at A&A Records, and I think I bought it on my second visit because I knew it would be the kind of thing that would be hard to find later on. Right. And fact for you, that acoustic version of Wanted Dead or Alive that's included on there is bloody amazing.
It's really good. And I'd never heard an all acoustic version of a song. I was used to hearing an electric version. Yeah. And you know what? Everybody talks about like Unplugged, and they talk about Clapton, and no disrespect, but I'm sorry, but John and Richie did that first on the 1989 AMAs.
100% they did. Yep. Yeah. They did.
A&A's, man. We just mentioning A&A's, that takes me back. And Sam's.
I can smell it. Yeah. I can smell them.
Yeah.
You would walk into Sam's, and there was it smelled like Sam's.
Yeah.
Yeah. No matter where you were, no matter what city you were in. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I always remember Sam the Record Man on Young. Yeah.
I spent a lot of money at my local Sam the Record Man when it was in business. And we had an A&A's for 2 years, and I don't remember it closing, but it wasn't there that long. But you know what? The first thing I bought at my A&A's, let me show you here. It's very much the same type of thing as the Bon Jovi EP, which I don't have anymore, but it's this.
Rocket. Yep.
Yeah. Same idea. I knew that, if I didn't buy this now, I'm not going to see it again. So, yeah.
I bought that one as well. I bought all the Def Leppard singles at the local Zeller's store. If you remember the local Zeller's store.
I do. We had to go
about, like, Zeller's
20 minutes, but yep.
And Kmart. All of those stores had great music departments.
They did.
They weren't as in-depth as an actual record store, but they had a lot of stuff to look at.
Yeah, and there was always that little old lady behind the counter. There was always the little old lady behind the counter who didn't know what you were buying. She would look at it and go, and then just take your money. But it was always that lady. Like, I don't know who that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys have inspired me to share a story with you that I'm not proud of.
Oh, no.
No.
No. Okay. So this would have been December 1988. So this would have been after Christmas 1988. I was on, my Christmas break. I was in grade 9. And Def Leppard were my favorite band. They're still one of my favorite bands. They were my favorite band then. And there was the Zellers in Fredericton, which was about an hour away from me when I lived in Woodstock, New Brunswick. And a flyer came out with cassettes on them, some cassettes that were for sale. And now that I think about it, some asshole thought they'd be smart. And instead of putting Hysteria on sale.
Can I stop you? I'm going to read your mind.
Yeah.
Soundtrack to the video Historia.
Exactly.
Same story, buddy. Same story. Zellers.
And so
I went to buy it.
I pestered my father to say, we got to go to Fredericton tonight. Tonight. My poor father worked all week in Fredericton. The last thing he wanted to do on Friday night was drive back to Fredericton another hour. But he went down, and I went there, couldn't find it anywhere. And the poor girl working behind the counter, I was such a little shit. I said, I want this tape right here. Like, it's in the flyer. I thought they made
Yes.
the flyer there. You know
Yes,
what I mean?
it's in the flyer. That's why I
Like,
went.
Mike, that is insane.
Dude,
That is
I
insane.
went to
That
the
is
store.
exactly what I'm talking about. I got to have that. I had the videotape. I said, I want to have that to listen to. That's Def Leppard's greatest hits right there.
Right. The dude was playing it in the store when I got there, and he wouldn't sell it to me.
See, no,
I
And
hate that.
the reason I wanted it is because I assumed, and I may never know, but at the time, I assumed and hoped it would have the music video version of Pour Some Sugar on Me with the weird intro.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't get that at the time. It wasn't on the single, as you well know.
Came out.
Holy crap, Tim. Dude, we had the exact same experience at the exact same time.
Yeah. So that's cool. It's just I didn't act very well, but I was so frustrated because there it is in the flyer. You know why? You know,
Soundtrack to the video Historia.
That's crazy.
I remember telling my friends at school, guys, there's a new Def Leppard out. I'm gonna go get it. And then I didn't get it.
You know what? You know what was funny about that's a good example of I don't know. Before the internet, I remember there used to be a syndicated radio show that was on Saturday nights called Pirate Radio.
Yeah.
And I think Lon Friend did it at one point, but somebody else did it before him. I can't remember his name. But I remember one night they played Tear It Down. And this would have been like 1990, right? This is before Adrenalize
came out. A push around then, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's because they did it on the AMAs that year.
Right, yeah.
If they'd have put that out as a single right there and then, I bet you they'd have had another hit. But anyway, originally that was the B-side of Women. And now everybody that's you got that right, Eric.
Oh,
that's some twin nerd hysteria. Yeah,
I feel the vibe. I feel the vibe.
Yeah, I feel attacked. No.
No.
But yeah, I knew that was a B-side. I knew that they had all these B-sides, and I remember listening to people say, Def Leppard have a new album coming out, and I'm thinking to myself, no, they don't. But how confusing would that be to, if you didn't buy singles, like if you didn't buy cassette singles, or if you didn't buy, I remember at Sam the Record Man finding the 45s to Hysteria and Pour Some Sugar on Me because they had Ride Into the Sun and Ring of Fire on them.
Yep.
And thinking, how cool that would be. Boy, I wish they put these out on an actual album. But yeah, man, that is so funny. I'm glad I mentioned that because that is the craziest thing. I went there specifically to pick up that Historia cassette. And we just lost a whole bunch of wireless. They're just like, I'm done.
I can't believe you had to drive an hour. I mean, I only had to walk 15 minutes and I was pissed. But you had to drive an hour with your dad.
And I came, well, we all went, the whole family went, but I mean, I hated going. I never went there and came away empty-handed, but I was so mad that they didn't have that I didn't even bother buying anything else.
I'm going to have to write this story up on my blog because you've brought back such a strong memory. I was also just going to tell you.
That?
Right.
So you just know that whoever was doing the pictures for that flyer they got a limited edition of that or something, and this ought to mess them up and put that in the picture and nobody knew to check, right?
That pissed me off so much. I wanted to just share an anecdote with you, though, because you triggered another memory. Me walking into the Zeller's store, a huge Def Leppard fan, loved Hysteria, loved Pyromania, and they're playing a song by clearly Def Leppard, and I'd never heard it before.
Yeah.
It's called Ride Into the Sun.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? And I checked their singles, and there it was. I believe that was the B-side to the title track, Hysteria.
Yes, it was.
I think.
Yeah.
So I flipped it over, and it said Ride Into the Sun. And I'm like, I do not know this song. And that trip to Zeller's is what triggered the full collage.
So about 6 years ago, Matt and I did an episode where we went through every configuration of Hysteria. And I thought I would try and assemble a pyramid with all the singles on it. Now, I didn't have the two special ones, the ones that weren't singles. So what I did is I got two Love Bites. So each of the upper corners, they're both Love Bites. They look okay. And then that bottom corner that's a little bit off, that is another, what is that? I bought another Women one and turned it upside down so that it's got like this trapezoid thing going on. Yeah, needless to say, I'm a big fan.
Oh,
very cool.
Maybe
Very
we should talk
clear.
about 8-tracks.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? one of my holy grail 8-tracks, I've got the first 3 Def Leppard on 8-track, right? Which is the only albums that are on 8-track. But I'm missing the reissued High and Dry with Me and My Wine and the Bring It On the Heartbreak remix. That exists on 8-track too, and I don't have that one.
The 84,
Wow.
the 84 version.
Yeah.
Out of focus here. I don't know what's wrong with my camera. I'm out of focus.
Oh.
I laughed so much that I laughed the camera out of focus.
You laughed yourself out of focus.
It's never happened
Hey.
before.
I while you guys were talking, while you fixed your camera, Mike, I looked up on metal.fandom.com,
There we go.
and it's a metal wiki page, and I looked up NRG.
Okay.
They were a band formed in 1986, most noteworthy for their connections to the Transformers franchise. Their song Instruments of Destruction appeared in the 86 film Transformers the Movie and has since become one of the most iconic musical pieces in the franchise. Ernie Petrangelo, the guitarist for the band, would make appearances at the 2001 and 2007 BotCon, the Transformers convention, chatting with friends and selling an altered version of the song. So they were active in 1986. They have a homepage called Area 403. And it was Les Brown on vocals, Lee Mangiano on drums, Pat Lynch on bass, and Ernie Petrangelo on guitar. And that's all it says.
Yeah. None of those names ring a bell either. You'd think that.
No.
Here's a question
No.
for you guys. Transformers soundtrack. What's the connection between a song on there to both Whitesnake and Kiss?
On the Transformers soundtrack, the 86 that
one
you were
song
showing
in
me.
particular has ties to Whitesnake and Kiss.
They all dated the same model at some point.
I
I don't know.
got to look up the track listing here.
So
I have no idea.
the title song, the Transformers theme, was done by the group
Oh!
called Lion.
Lion.
Yeah.
Doug Aldrich.
Whose guitarist was Doug Aldrich. Okay, there's your Whitesnake one. The Kiss one's a little
Yep.
more obscure. That song on there was produced by Richie Wise. And when I see the name Richie Wise, I can only think of Kenny Kerner and Richie Wise, who produced the first 2 Kiss albums.
Yeah.
And
That's
you know,
correct.
as we're just talking here, it becomes more and more apparent why Martin thought I should be the one to do this book.
Yes.
You ever hear of
Even
a
though he
band,
didn't say your name.
You ever hear of a band called Dust from the early
Yes.
70s?
Yep.
Yeah, I just played their album last week. It's good sludgy early 70s rock, and that's Kenny Kerner and
Yeah.
Richie Wise.
And it's also Kenny Aronson.
Kenny Aronson, yeah, who later went on to, I believe, Sammy Hagar or Montrose or both.
HSAS. He was in
HSAS.
Hagar, Schoen, Aronson, Shreve. They did
That's
one
it.
album, which is on 8-track, which I don't have, which I'd like to have.
Well,
There's another example of a missing title. So Sammy had 3 Lock Box is on 8-track. That's 82. That HSAS album is 84. That's on 8-track. The 1987 album, self-titled, I Never Said Goodbye, the Give to Live album, whatever you want to call it, that's on 8-track. But VOA doesn't seem to be, which was his biggest solo album. So there's inconsistencies within this.
I
And,
don't
you know,
understand.
And something else that I tried to get out of with this is, you know, if somebody said, I'm pretty sure I saw that on 8-track, that's fine. I'm glad you think you saw it. I need a picture.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not, you know, I'm not going on speculation. Like I have, you know, one of the books that I kind of modeled it after, actually, I'll show it off. It's worth giving a mention. One, you guys are familiar with Martin's Big Book of Hair Metal
Yes, I have it.
that he put out 2014. Fantastic book. That's one of the ones I kind of like the look of. But the other one for the list is this book here, which is done by a guy named, good luck pronouncing his last name, I have no idea. But
Zabla.
it's about picture sleeves and the amounts people will pay for picture sleeves. They don't even have to have the vinyl in them, just as long as they have the picture sleeves. And what he talked about in the intro to that is avoiding something called a phantom sleeve. In other words, what that means is, I'll use an easy example. I'll use a Kiss example, okay? So this book deals strictly in U.S. releases. So, as you guys know, usually for American bands releasing their stuff in Canada, usually the singles, everything they released was pretty much the same, right? Right down to the catalog number. The only thing that would be different would be, the address of the record company, right? They usually just mirrored them. But there's one single that Kiss did that has a picture sleeve in Canada that does not in the US. And that's Lick It Up. Lick It Up obviously was issued as a single in the US, but it was just in a stock Mercury polygram sleeve. In Canada, there's a band photo one. So let's say, for example, someone said, well, I saw an American version of that. Oh, yeah? And people start adding it to their want list. Then has created a phantom sleeve because it never came out in the States. So I didn't want any phantom carts. I didn't want someone to say, well, Tim Durling put in his book that Sammy Hagar VOA was on 8-track. Well, I've never seen the evidence of it. I've never seen any evidence of it either. That's why it's not in there.
Interesting.
I'd rather stand corrected than have something that's just plain wrong.
So just a hypothetical here for you. Let's say 5 years down the road, your collection and knowledge of what exists out there has expanded. Do you do a second printing?
I thought about that.
That's...
it would have to be a significant amount of editions. And I'm going to move around here a little bit because my phone is dying, and I'm going to try and find a place to plug it in. So,
okay, no problem.
And also there's another aspect of that. Hello. There's another aspect of that where there's a chapter in the book, and I won't say what's in it, but there's a chapter in the book where I dedicate to albums that I'm speculating may have come out on 8-track, and I put reasons why it might exist, and then reasons why it probably doesn't exist. I had a little fun with that one towards the end of the book.
That does sound fun. I'm curious. It's kind of like hunting for Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say it's kind of like hunting for Bigfoot. Until you see an actual photo or you get some DNA, Bigfoot doesn't exist.
Well, here's the other thing about that, and why I'm really glad to be putting this book out. With most things, people would say, well, why don't you just Google it? And it's true. With most things, you can just Google it. This is this weird netherworld where you can't just Google it. I guarantee you, if you type in 1980s 8-tracks, you'll find everything but what you want to find.
Wow. In other words, folks, if you want to know more about 8-track tapes, go down to that Kickstarter down there. There's a bunch of different tiers where you can get some different bonuses too. I'm looking forward to my bookmark in my bag.
Yeah, we're we really wanted to have something for every every budget or whatever. It starts at $9. For $9, you get a printable PDF of the book. All full color, and it's the closest we have to an ebook. And then all the way up to $99, I think we called it the Stadium Tour, and that gets you a hardcover book with your name in the credits. Get you a soft cover book. It gets you a reusable tote bag. It gets you a couple of bookmarks, and I think a couple of magnets come with that. And there's everything in between. Like we, tried to put it together as if, let's say somebody wants to go in with a buddy on one, and they don't care if they have a hardcover or soft cover. See, we've got packages that have 2 books in them. We've just got a soft cover book. We've got ones, early bird packages where you do get your name in the credits in the hardcover edition, and I sign it. I sign it to you as well. So. It's like I said, it's a little bit surreal to think of myself as an author, and I really don't. But I do think what this will do, it's a coffee table book. This is a book that you don't necessarily have to pick up and read from cover to cover, but it makes an excellent coffee table book. And dare I say, it might make an excellent bathroom reader. You can just find yourself, sit down, chilling, looking through it. It also makes a good reference book.
Yeah.
And I take a lot of pride in that. That's why I was very careful. Like when Matt and I were going through the list back and forth, there were some titles I had written down, and then I looked at them again, and I said, just a second. I went on eBay, and I went on Discogs, and I went on all the sources I could normally find. I said, you know what? I don't know how this got on the list. Get rid of it. I don't know that it exists on 8-track, and it was important to me to to make sure that everything that was on there existed. And as much as I would have loved to have had pictures for everything, I just that's not possible. Although there are some really cool pictures inside of it.
But you can, for example, verify something without a photograph by having an actual Columbia House catalog that shows that title in there, for example.
Well, you know what? I mean, a few weeks ago, or when you guys, one of the times that you guys had Andy Curran on there, I actually asked him a question because I found an old 1982 Canadian Columbia House catalog, and sure enough, it had the first Coney Hatch album. It did not have an asterisk next to it, which means it was available on 8-track. Now, I've never seen it. And Andy wasn't aware that there was one. But again, probably would be very, very small amounts.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the crazy thing about it, because I'm such a geek with this stuff. Because I know what the Canadian Columbia House cassette version of the Coney Hatch album looks like, I bet you the cassette looks, or the 8-track looks the same way. It's yellow with black printing on it. I can picture it,
Man, I hope you find one. I hope you find one.
A Coney Hatch 8-track, yeah. And that's the other thing about knowing that they made the 8-tracks in Canada for Columbia House all the way up to 1984. That makes me wonder: are there any Helix? Is Honeymoon Suite's first album on there? Are there any of Kim Mitchell's solo albums? Is there a Platinum Blonde 8-track? Is there, what Spoons? Like what could there be? Just recently, I found a picture of Toronto, Get It on Credit, which is from '82 on 8-track.
Yeah, and that's kind of obscure.
Yeah, the Coney Hatch and Honeymoon Suite connection there, by the way.
You're gonna have. I don't know it. I don't know Toronto that well.
Okay, so basically all I know is Your Daddy Don't Know. But
that's
if you look
all
at
I
the video
know.
to that song, the bass player is Gary Lalonde, who would go on to Honeymoon Suite.
Okay,
and
yes.
The drummer is Barry Connors, who played on the third Coney Hatch album, Friction.
Which I love. That's actually, I think it's my favorite Coney Hatch album.
So good.
Yeah.
And one of the coolest parts of this is that I've seen, but not an 8-track. Yeah, see, it hasn't been that long since I actually saw it. The fun is in the hunt. You're absolutely right, Robert. And when you can find something and just go, holy cow, like, wow, so I'm hoping that this is something that people can, use and refer to, and it's even helped me out a little bit, in wondering what I should put on my list of what I'm missing. I'll give you a good example. I'm a big fan of Kansas and their 1983 album, Drastic Measures. I've never seen evidence that it's on 8-track. I have no idea why it wouldn't be, because it's 1983. They were on CBS Records, which Columbia House is a division of that. It would make sense. The album, the two that they put out after that are on 8-track. Again, it's another one of those in-between ones. Doesn't make any sense why it wouldn't be.
And you showed us the later album with Steve Morse.
Yeah. The difference between, Columbia House and RCA. Okay, so if you were on, say, Atlantic Records or Warner Brothers or Mercury or A&M or MCA, there'd be a Columbia House version, and there could be an RCA Music Service version of your album on RCO.
Yes.
If you were on CBS, if you were a CBS Records artist, you weren't going to be on RCA Music Service, and vice versa.
Right.
So I write about, I think most of us remember Columbia House way more than the other music clubs.
I was only a member of Columbia.
I had both. I had both.
Oh, you did have, yeah. But
I had Columbia House and BMG. Yeah.
That's what I would have done too back then. But you were missing out either way. But I think because the CBS roster had so many of the superstar acts of the 80s. I mean, they had Michael Jackson and Bruce Springsteen. And, you're missing a lot if you weren't a member of Columbia House too. So it's funny because I hear people talk about Columbia House so much now. And so much of that history has to do with this book because that's the only place they were available.
Yeah. Even for something later on, like in the the early 90s, when you could not buy new vinyl anymore, I was able to order certain titles on vinyl from Columbia House, and I have a 1991 Skid Row Slave to the Grind on vinyl.
Oh,
And it exists.
that's-
I have it.
yeah, no, I know. And they put that out for Record Store Day, and people bought it up, and they're selling it way too expensive on eBay, and I hate that. So,
Yeah.
And Mike, you know my Van Morrison story, trying to find that Too Long in Exile from '93 on vinyl. And so it was 93, and it was only in the UK and Europe. So try to get it here. Right?
yeah. See,
I did get one.
Vinyl lasted longer in the UK and in Germany, and in other territories. Like, I remember I sent away just because I thought it'd be funny. I sent away in 1993. I got a German copy of Aerosmith Get a Grip, and just the novelty of seeing that on vinyl at the time seemed strange to me. But original 90s vinyl is almost as hard to find as some of these RCOs.
Yeah.
There's precious little of it, right?
I have some treasures from the early 90s. I've got a Kiss Alive. I got 2 Kiss Alive 3 on colored vinyl from 93. And I also have a 93 reissue of Kiss Revenge on gray slate marble vinyl.
Oh, okay.
So those are
the only Kiss 90s vinyl I have are the 2014 reissues. Like, I got Unplugged and Carnival of Souls and Psycho Circus. I do have an original 94 version of the Kiss My Ass tribute album, though.
I have that as well.
Yeah, with the Unheilig on it from
Unheilig,
which I wish they'd put on the CD, because honestly, it would have been one of the best tracks on there. Because I'm not the biggest fan of that collection, but I have very little early 90s vinyl. A couple I have from 1990. I've got In Excess X, and I've got John Bon Jovi, the Young Guns 2 soundtrack, Blaze of Glory, on vinyl. That's not something you see all the time, but most of my 90s vinyl reissues, like the Black Album and Rush Roll the Bones and Dream Theater, Falling into Infinity, it's all reissue stuff, which I'm okay with that, but it would be cool to find some of the original stuff. And you're right, Columbia House did offer vinyl a little bit longer than because I think that my German vinyl, no, that wouldn't be right. Never mind, brain fart.
You know what would be a great I was going to say, what would be awesome to find on vinyl would be old original hip albums.
Nowadays, you'd probably be paying a pretty penny for those.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They just released that box set, didn't they? I think Deke was saying he got it for his birthday today.
Oh,
nice.
Another original 90s vinyl I have. For some reason, it came out on vinyl. I remember buying it at Sam's. Was Van Halen Balance. I still have it in the plastic.
No way.
That's probably one of the most expensive records I have. That one and A Different Kind of Truth. If you didn't get those ones when they first came out, they're super expensive now.
Balance.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I was working at the record store in 95. We didn't stock a lot of vinyl, but we did stock 2 titles. We stocked in 94 Pearl Jam Versus when it came out, because if you recall, that came out on vinyl 1 week ahead of the CD. And we also stocked Soundgarden Down Up on the Upside in 96. No particular reason other than Soundgarden were huge.
I was going to say, if you think about it, the vinyl that did come out domestically in the 90s, they were big bands.
Yes.
It
was an event release.
Yes. Yeah, it was an event. Yeah, exactly. It was something for people to talk about. And it was only been like in the late, like 2009, 2010, when it started to become normal for new albums to come on vinyl. One of the first ones I got was the first Chickenfoot album. I got the second on vinyl. I need the second on vinyl. Yeah. No, sorry, I don't. No, I have the first on vinyl with Bitten by the Wolf as the vinyl bonus track. Yeah, that's what I have. Unfortunately, I don't have the heat-sensitive cover. I only have that on CD. I have that on CD, too. Yeah, I don't have that on record. But I remember that when that came out, it was like, that was the coolest thing. It was like, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. Actually, you know what? I want to segue for a second. The Chickenfoot, I bought it on vinyl because it had a bonus track. Right. I was going to ask you a question, but then it turns out I was doing some research today for a completely unrelated thing, and I found an answer. But let's test your knowledge here. Okay, sure. Are you aware of any releases on 8-track that may have like a different
version of a song or a bonus track or anything like that? I'm just kind of curious. I found the answer earlier.
The only thing that comes to mind, and I'm not very, very familiar with them. I know, they're a big band, but there are a couple of Pink Floyd albums.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, like I think Animals.
Yep.
Has
Animals.
Some extra music on it that isn't on.
According to the Wikipedia page, which is probably pretty accurate considering how Pink Floyd fans would make sure that it's referenced.
Yeah, you're right.
Animals has an alternate guitar solo on one track by the recently hired Snowy White.
Wow.
And it's only on the 8-track version.
Do you think maybe that was because they'd already sent, like the masters to be pressed up on vinyl and cassette?
Something like that, because apparently Gilmour's
the last ones to go
Yes, something like that, because Gilmour's solo, they thought they lost it. They thought they erased it. So they had Snowy come in and write and record another solo. But only on the 8-track version, apparently.
That's crazy.
And I wonder if that's the kind of thing that would be on one of those Pink Floyd Experience box sets, although I don't know if there's one for Animals yet. But there you go. Yeah, Floyd. Oh, Tim's frozen again. He mentioned his phone was struggling.
Are you guys?
Yes.
You guys all right?
You're a
Can you
little
hear me?
frozen. We can hear you.
Yeah. All right. I can see you guys. I was going to say, I don't think there's many examples like that. There might be, there might be a Beatles album like that, but I'm not sure.
Interesting.
Yeah. But probably not many. Yeah, probably not many. It just didn't seem like, and I just had this funny thought, if 8 tracks had lasted much longer, would we have gotten 8-track singles?
I wonder.
Wow.
There's a mind blower. In an alternate universe, that happened.
Yeah. With a slipcase cover and the whole thing.
It would be a weird format for a single, wouldn't it? Oh, we lost him again. He's frozen again. Bummer.
Let's all go to the lobby.
You guys still there?
Yeah, you're freezing up a bit.
If you guys have ever seen what I call naked 8 tracks, in other words, they don't have a front cover on them. I'm not talking about fake ones, but they'll only have like the song titles on them and the label. What happens there is that those would have been ones that would have come with a slipcase, and the slipcase is gone.
Okay.
Let me show you. Hold on. Set my phone down. I'll show you a real good example of that, and one of the rarest in my collection. One of my favorite bands ever. I've championed them many times. Y&T.
Yes, you have.
This is the first album, Yesterday and Today. Very rare.
It's in great shape.
This is a slipcase. This is a slipcase. I was very fortunate to find this. Here's what the 8-track itself looks like. There's no artwork on it.
Just the track list.
Yeah. So when you see ones like this, they're real.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that the slipcases got thrown away.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So for that one,
it's hard for me to come on anywhere and not talk about Y&T at least once.
I'm glad you have. So something like that, a collector wouldn't consider it complete until they get both pieces to it.
Well,
but
I actually, you know what? I've got a fairly beaten up version of that without a slipcase, and I was just as happy to find that because you talk about rare. I think that only the first 2 Y&T albums, when they were called Yesterday and Today, I think those are the only Y&T 8 tracks. I have never seen any like Earthshaker, Black Tiger, Mean Streak.
Right.
That doesn't mean they're not out there.
Right.
But if you think about how, relatively obscure that band is, think of, they sold so many albums on record and cassette. Well, divide that by 6 and you've probably got the 8-track sales, right, or more.
Kevin here is asking if there were such thing as blank 8 tracks, and yes, actually,
absolutely.
you know what? I'll show you the picture, Kevin. Hold on one moment.
Yeah.
I have a picture of me with our old. Just got to find the picture here.
Yeah.
Our old 8-track player, and it was a player recorder, And just sorry, I should have had this prepped since I planned on showing it tonight. But here we go.
Yeah, I don't have any, but yeah, they definitely did. You could record songs off the radio. You could record albums onto them just like you could with cassette tapes.
There we go. There's my old family system there right behind me. And that is an 8-track recorder. And it came with 2 microphones. It was a stereo recorder. And unfortunately, my mom revealed earlier in the show tonight that we just tossed out all the 8-track tapes. But there it is.
Mike, I got to ask, was that before or after dessert?
I'm thinking it was before, but I do look pretty happy. That's for sure.
There you go.
I look to be dressed up
in that picture you mentioned from 1986 where I had the Ultra Magnus. Somebody said, it looks like you have a cigarette in your mouth.
Yeah.
It was a cigarette. I think it was probably a sucker.
I hope so. Yeah. Otherwise, you're smoking in the house.
Yeah. And my grandmother was sitting on the couch behind me. So
yeah, I don't think that was a cigarette, but it's just funny because, you know, I'm looking at these pictures before I'm blowing them up, and there's a white thing sticking out of your mouth that's approximately the right length and size, you know.
What I liked about that too is I've clearly got a pair of headphones on.
Right, and they were kind of like the old style Walkman foam padded headphones.
That's exactly what they were. And the left one always went first, so I had to listen to everything. I only had everything in one channel. The only good thing about that is every once in a while I pick up vocal harmonies or guitar parts I never noticed before.
That was the major flaw with Walkman headphones. They shorted out. They shorted out and they went to mono all the time. Yeah.
And if you were listening to something where, you know, the guitar was hard panned to one side, you might not have a solo.
Right, exactly. I remember blowing out my left speaker in my car, my front left speaker in my car, and listening to music became unbearable. It was unbearable. I mean, I'm a music freak, right? And my dad was like, "Oh, come on, son, what's the big deal?" And I was like, "Dad, I have to get the car fixed. I cannot live like this."
It's important.
I'm sure you guys would understand that.
Yeah. You want to know something fun? Listen to Alice Cooper's "Elected" and hard pan it to both sides. The vocals only on one side for some reason. So you've got your own built-in karaoke version.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
And Eddie Van Halen used to complain that on those early albums, the Ted Templeman stuff, his guitar was hard panned to one side, and they didn't really start fixing that until about Fair Warning-ish, I think.
Yeah.
But he hated how his guitar sounded, and if you blew a speaker in your car, you got no guitar.
Yeah. The only thing that would be good for is if you were in a Van Halen cover band, you were trying to learn the bass lines.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
But, you know, you listen to something like Queen when that happens. You'd miss half of the harmonies.
Speaking of
Queen, nice.
Eric has a huge connection with A Night at the Opera on the Basement 8-track. Beat my dad in darts for months until he made me turn the frickin' Queen off.
Awesome.
That's a good memory. I do remember one of my parents' 8-track tapes, which was the Beatles' Rock and Roll Music.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that one. I don't remember any of the others, although I know there were some other Beatles. I know I shared a story with you for your book regarding an early experience. A second story. Oh, that's
there
neat.
You go.
Yes.
Rock and roll music. Yeah.
Now I remember the cassette looking different. I seem to remember hands at the bottom.
Yeah. Hands.
There they are. There's the hands. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
I do have one other experience that I wanted to share tonight, although I didn't want to share it for your book because I didn't think it was particularly appropriate. But my best friend growing up, Bob Shipper, he must have had an 8-track in his family as well, as many of our families did back then. But around 1985-86, this little deck of swimsuit playing cards was making the rounds in our neighborhood. And Bob Shipper figured that if you took apart an 8-track tape, you could hide a deck of swimsuit cards perfectly inside, and your parents would never, ever find it. So kudos to Bob Shipper for discovering that you can hide a swimsuit deck of cards in one of these.
That was, you know what? Nowadays, they call that a life hack. So, you know what? Here's a good question for you guys. We're talking about formats, and you're talking about 1985, 1986. When do you guys first remember seeing CDs?
My cousin, Jeffrey, who was a little bit more hoity-toity, had a hoity-toity family, visited from out west, and his father brought with him his CD player. And this would have been 87-ish, and we played the Good Morning Vietnam soundtrack. And
Nice.
before that, would have been about 86-ish, I heard on the CBC, God, what was the guy's name? He used to have his own program called, was it Gilmore's Records or something like that? Classical program.
I think you're right. I can't think of his first name.
He was Clyde, maybe. He was the first one who I ever heard play a CD on the radio. He's like, listen to this. It's the compact disc. And that would have been 86.
I remember there was a radio station I used to listen to, and one of their big selling points was they'd play a song and they'd say, from the CD or from the compact disc. And I remember that there was a video rental store in my hometown that had a very small selection of CDs. And this, again, if they didn't come in the long boxes, then they came in those long plastic blister packs where you have the booklet on the top and the rest of the CD and the jewel case on the bottom. And I remember seeing ZZ Top Afterburner, and seems to me there was a Simple Minds album. I thought they were the funniest looking things. I never had a CD player, honestly, until the end of 1990. I was very late getting into CDs. They were expensive. Like they were probably $30, where a cassette, you know, with tax and everything might cost you $14. So, and I didn't know anybody else that had them either, right? But you know, then you find out weird things, like some of the first CDs actually came out in 1982.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's an excellent website, guy by the name of Keith Hirsch. If you just go to keithhirsch.com, he has an excellent. No, you know, yeah, you're right. 52nd Street. I mean, it wasn't. That's from '78. The CD didn't come out then,
right?
But Keith Hirsch has an excellent website, and he talks about these CDs called Target CDs. And that has nothing to do with the Target store, but the WEA group, like Warner Electra Atlantic, would have these CDs that would look like a gun sight on the CD itself. And a lot of those are very, very rare. Like some of the CDs that I would like to have, and if anybody knows anything about Queen, they'll know that this is not something that you see all the time. You can get News of the World, The Game, and the original Greatest Hits on CD on Electra, which that, you know, they were only on Electra Records for a very short time when CDs were a thing, and then they switched to Capitol. So it's that sort of stuff. And then Rush, Moving Pictures and Signals were released on CD in 1983. It doesn't surprise me that they would be on the cutting edge of that, though, the cutting edge of technology. But you can tell the early CDs apart by the looks of them, not by the booklets, but by the CDs themselves.
Yes, yes. I seem to remember a lot of early European import discs felt a lot thinner as well.
And what's funny about the early CDs, too, is that not every record label had pressing plants for them just yet. That's why I've got my Rat dancing undercover. If I look at the disc itself, it'll say manufactured in West Germany for Polygram.
Oh, that's why so many are manufactured in West Germany.
Yeah, because there were no North American pressing plants. You know, the Warner Group didn't have. It was a big deal in 1984 when CBS opened up a pressing plant in Terre Haute, Indiana. And they put out a special edition of Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA, where it's all red print on the CD. So if you ever see a used copy of Born in the USA, it pays to look inside. Don't go by just the jewel case. If it's got all red printing, you've got a rare CD there.
I could swear I've seen one before. I mean, I saw a lot of copies of that when I was working at the used record store. So could swear I've seen one with red printing without realizing the significance.
See, most people wouldn't know because that's such a common album, right?
Right.
I don't know how I got onto compact discs when we're talking about a book about 8-tracks, but basically the point is I'm obsessed with formats, right?
I love formats. Yeah. I love formats.
Okay. You know what? So, when I was a kid, I think that was another appeal to me with 8-tracks because I'd see, you know, ABBA's greatest hits, for instance, on record, and then I'd see a small little picture of it on the 8-track, and I think that's cool.
Right. I know. And it's neat to see them all together as you do.
Yeah.
Like follow him on Instagram, by the way, folks, if you want to see some cool pictures. But I love when you have like, here's the vinyl, the CD, the cassette, or whatever you have. Of
when I have all the formats and singles from the album, I love doing those collages. But you know what? There's one format. I was just doing an interview. I did an interview yesterday with Curtis from Retro Zest podcast, and somehow we got on the subject of reel to reel, which is to me is like the last frontier of music collecting, because I don't ever remember albums being sold on reel to reel. I thought they were just used for newsrooms or
in
you know what
Marcellus
I mean?
Wallace's house in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But you could go on eBay
Or mini
right
disc.
now. Mini disc. Remember those little DCC, those little digital
compact cassettes.
They came up with in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Polygram did a bunch of those. Like you can get like Revenge and Alive 3 and Retroactive and yeah. But reel to reel, you could go on eBay right now and find like Destroyer on reel to reel, or Toys in the Attic, or School's Out. Very expensive. You're going to pay no less than $200 plus. So that's why I haven't explored those, because they haven't come down in price, because they're even beyond 8 tracks. I don't even know. I never knew anyone that had one of those.
I've never seen one in person. I've never known, it's talking about some of these other formats, I've never known anybody that owned a DAT player. I've never known anybody that owned a mini disc player. Aaron owned a mini disc player.
Oh, yeah?
Sure, I did. Yep. I had, it was a portable one, like a disc, like a Walkman.
Yeah.
And I mostly used it I would buy the blank ones, and I would copy CDs onto the mini discs, and then I would just walk around with the mini disc because it never skipped.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. I do remember, and it was Columbia Records because Sony. But I do remember being able to buy, like, being really tempted to buy the Harry Connick, because I'm a huge Harry Connick Jr. fan. They had his Blue Light, Red Light album on a mini disc, and I was really tempted to buy it, but I didn't, because I already had the CD. I just copied it onto a blank, and it was fine by me. But it didn't occur to me that they would disappear. But yeah, I did. I had it for years. I had a mini disc player. Yep.
Wow.
I remember using, when I first started in radio, Robert, we still use reel to reel to record ads on. And I can still remember recording an ad and making a mistake and having to make a diagonal cut on the tape, find the exact spot where you then find the next spot, make another diagonal cut, and then there was a special kind of little thin tape that you taped across it, and you hope to God that you cut it in the right spot. Otherwise, you just have to do it again. And also there were huge. We used to keep, like, radio stations have to have something called a logger. In other words, if somebody thinks they heard something inappropriate, they can call and say they heard something at such and such a time. And radio stations are legally required to be able to document everything that gets played for a certain period. And it used to be on these huge reels, like probably 12 inches in diameter, and they would just constantly be recording and recording and recording. Oh, cool.
There's a handful of, here, show those again, buddy. That's
nice.
Cool. Those are your own covers too. Is that what that says?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've got. There you go. This is the CanCon. There you go.
And that is Sloan.
There you go.
Nice.
This is going way back.
From kind of my area of Canada, the Maritimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a Tom Waits.
I'm sure, Tim, you're aware of Techmoan on YouTube.
Tragically Hip.
What was that, Mike?
Are you aware of the YouTube channel Techmoan?
It sounds familiar.
He does every audio format known to man, including wire. But about 2-3 weeks ago, he unboxed about maybe 200 Discmans from Japan. I swear to God,
wow.
About 200. And it's just fascinating watching him going, this one's pink and this one's green, and fascinating. I mean,
I saw
in Japan,
one,
they were huge.
I don't know if this is the same guy, but yeah, Robert knows what I'm talking about. He probably knows what the parts were too. I watched one show, and I can't remember what channel it was, but a guy was talking about laser discs, and how Laserdiscs, you know, why they never really caught on. It was really, really fascinating. And that's something else I'm not overly familiar with. I think of those as being like record-sized DVDs, basically. And the only time I ever saw a Laserdisc being played was at a record store that I was in once. And it, of all things, it was the Rush Grace Under Pressure live home video on Laserdisc. And of course, I was fascinated, right? But I never knew anybody that had one of those players either.
Well, I did, and I went over to his house one day and we watched Terminator 2, and I believe it was split over 4 discs, 8 sides in total, including all the bonus features. But it was cool, and I believe Rob might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe as far as Star Wars is concerned, if you want to watch a decent original cut of the Star Wars trilogy, Laserdisc is still the best version available.
I've heard that about different, whether it's classic cartoons or whatever, that Laserdiscs are like the holy grail. And you know, they made Laserdiscs all the way up until the year 2000. I would have had no idea.
I remember our local Steve's TV, which was like the epicenter of movie fanatics in Kitchener. Aaron, you would know Steve's TV, I'm sure.
Of course. Yeah.
I remember them blowing out their Laserdiscs at, I guess, would have been around that time. They're 2000, 2001-ish. And there was nothing decent left in the bin when I was looking. All the Star Wars was gone. But yeah, I remember them being in the store at Steve's TV and looking at them and being fascinated by them. And they were heavy. Yeah. And
I got a story about.
Sorry, go on. I was going to say, just working at the UCD store, I only handled them a couple of times, but I did get to handle them and wipe them clean and stuff like that. And it was kind of like, that's a big CD, man.
Yeah.
I've got a story about those.
They were precursor to DVDs, really.
Yeah. The only difference is
a visual media in a disc format.
I think the only difference that there's a lot of differences, but I think the major difference is the wavelength of the laser with DVD enabled them to cram more information into less space, but also it changes focus so you can have those dual layers.
Yeah.
Remember how a DVD used to pause in the middle of a movie when it would switch layers?
Yeah.
And Rob confirms that Laserdisc was the way to go for the original Star Wars. Aaron, what was your story you were going to say?
Oh, just one time at the store, we got in a box of about close to 100 Laserdiscs.
Oh, that's a mother load.
Somebody just donated them all. There was Top Gun and all kinds of, I don't know what all was in there. And I said to my supervisor, because we have pricing for things, but didn't have anything for Laserdisc because we don't get them that often. And I said, what do you want to do with these? And I think we put $5 a piece on them. And there were so many of them that the local radio station, one of the DJs, I guess, had been in and saw them all. And he's like, hey, you got to get over there because they've got a whole bin full of these movies. If you're a collector, get over there. And yeah, but it was really neat to see them all because they were really unique. And I actually had to clear out a bin of vinyl records to put them in, like a rack, because they were the same size. They fit in there, right? Yeah. And it was really neat to go through them all. It was cool.
That reminds me.
They all sold.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that price. Yeah. You guys know why that when CDs first came out, they were in either the blister packs or the long boxes?
I do.
Yeah.
It was because that was the size of the bins in the stores. You could fit 2 CDs in the same width as one LP. We had those when I was working.
I had when I first started buying CDs.
I have a cool one
in the early 90s. I had about 2 dozen long boxes, and I really wish I'd saved them because I just never thought, they just ended up, I'd move and I don't need these.
There's one. Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Dude.
Is that the reissued one?
It's the reissue. Yeah. Oh, I never opened it, but yeah, it's the
I got my
revisited.
I got my kids each one of those when that came out, and they haven't opened theirs either. That's actually one of my.
It was $16.99.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was so
And it's
happy
a
when they put that
lenticular
out. That's
cover,
one
isn't
of my
it?
prized possession CDs is the original Electra CD to that.
Which is what I have.
That's
But
really hard to find.
Mine's really scratched up, though, unfortunately.
Hold on, I have something else here too.
Long
Yeah,
boxes
long
were
boxes
awesome.
great for having the the artwork on them. The first CD I ever bought once I got a CD player. So this would have been 1990, and they had a bunch in the bargain section. So for $7, I bought Night Ranger's Big Life album, that had The Secret of My Success on it. And I remember,
There's the cassette.
There you go. And I remember
Yeah,
thinking,
so
okay,
that's
and I opened the bottom of it, and the CD fell out, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, boys, it's getting close to 9 o'clock here. So let's start wrapping it up. But let's get back to 8 tracks and the book, which would be an appropriate place to end the conversation.
we could talk for days.
Not that I have
this
not
was
enjoyed
awesome.
the
No,
conversation.
this was great. Yeah.
But Tim, just circling back to the book, which by the way is called Unspooled. I think you have done very well with your Kickstarter. How long do people have to buy this?
So October 23rd is D-Day.
Okay.
And and again, I can't thank everybody enough who's already pledged. I can't thank everybody enough like you guys for giving me the chance to come on and talk about this. This is all
pleasure.
new to me. I'm used to being the one interviewing people. I'm not used to being the interviewee. So, people have just been so generous. There's so much goodwill towards this project. And, I'm pretty confident in the way that it's designed. It looks so good. And the content that's in it, I just, there's a lot for a music collector to like here. And, if anybody that's watching is thinking, oh, I've never had any interest in 8-track tapes. It's not just about that. It's about music collecting, and just that feeling of finding something that you were looking for. When you walk into a store and there it is, as much fun as it is to find something that you've been looking for on eBay and know that it's coming, to actually walk into a store and have it in hand right there and then, that's, there's nothing like that, right? There's nothing like that feeling. Thank you, Eric. Right Jetter age. I like that.
It took me a second there to. But yeah, it's true. I mean, like if you have been enjoying,
better when it's aged a little bit, right?
Personally, I prefer mozzarella, but let's not get into this debate. That could be for another show.
There you go.
But if you have been enjoying these conversations that we've had about searching for things and finding things and confirming that things exist, the excerpts that I have seen from this book are going to scratch your itch. And again, you can go to Tim's Instagram and check out some of the pictures. I know last time we talked, you said that you were having a lot of these tapes photographed professionally, and now we've seen the fruits of your labor.
Yeah. Some really cool eye-popping pictures.
The question is, after the Kickstarter, where will this be available?
Well, that's the thing. It really won't be. It's really a print on demand or a print to order.
Okay.
I'm really not sure. If we've done really well with it, and who knows? We may do it again. I don't know. I don't really know how it works, but right now, like someone talked to me about a book tour, and I thought, well, I'm not really going to have them to sell. It's a little bit different, right? Somebody like Martin Popoff can say he's going to do a book, and people know it's going to be great because he's built up a reputation. I don't. I'm just a total newbie here, right? But you know what? I have to give him a shout out because if it weren't for him, this wouldn't be happening either.
Yeah, this is the man right here.
Oh,
big fan of him. Big fan of him. I wouldn't be blogging if it wasn't for this guy, and this book specifically.
He hates that early writing.
I
but
know
there are lines in those books that I've memorized that I still think are some of the funniest disses of albums I've ever heard in my life.
Rick Emmett, absolutely.
Yes.
The review had just one sentence. One sentence. Man, don't get me started.
Oh, okay. Doesn't he say idiots rule or something like that?
I don't think on that album. Well, let me check.
Isn't that the one where he says, if I'm into this about as much as I'm into Def Leppard's Adrenalize, but ground rules state I can't go below zero. If I could, though, Rick would be my man.
Oh,
Yes, I got the two albums mixed up. Ipso fact. Oh no, it absolutely is Man Don't Get Me Started with a rating of 0. Ipso facto. Even more idiots rule again, even more increasingly dismal. Rick is the Peter Cetera of rock. I'm into this almost as you did this word for word. You got that right.
No, I've read that so many times. And here's the thing, like I've said this before, my all-time favorite album is right behind me. It's Hysteria. And Martin famously gave that a 0. It doesn't matter. It's just music. We can talk about this stuff, right? Yeah. I don't take it personally, but some of his reviews were just, and some of them were like, I think it was Adrenalized. He said something to the effect of, no, I'm not even going to say. He's probably embarrassed by now. But yeah, some of the, Y&T 10, there's another good example. After I went on the Contrarians with Marco and debated that as my favorite Y&T album, he messaged me, said, man, I listened to that again. I was jogging. I hate it. I hate the production. I hate the songs. I hate everything. And I don't know what to tell you.
I will say that Martin's book here has colored my impressions of a lot of things over the years, but it also turned me on to Budgie. He was a lot of good Budgie albums in here, and I was like, man, I gotta check out that Budgie. And another one was Gillan. He was raving about Gillan in here. Yeah. So those are two bands that I might never have started collecting if it wasn't for Martin. And I know he finds it embarrassing, but I mean, I find my early shit kind of embarrassing too.
Well, obviously, his writing got a lot better, right? But that was a do-it-yourself project, right? Just I find myself in the same boat now, and that's why we've had proofreaders go through it and make sure. And my buddy Matt that designed it for me, I'd put different things, and fun truth. That's a good way of putting it, Eric. I would write a sentence, and Matt would be a really good editor and say, you and I know what that refers to. Is everybody going to know what that refers to? I'm like, yeah, you know what? You're right. Let's take that out. Right. I like in Martin's book, for example, he's got a glossary just in case you need to catch up with his speed. You do sometimes need to explain these things. You can't just use terminology like over the top without explaining exactly what over the top means. Yeah, I liked his description of hard rock. He said, or no, maybe it was pop metal. He said it makes you want to, put on a nice shirt, drink coolers, and chase women, as opposed to dress in black and defile graveyards. Right. All praise to Martin Popoff and kudos to him for planting that bug in your ear. And man, you've worked hard on this. It's clear. I'm really stoked to get my copy. And Aaron, if you want a copy, I can always upgrade my pledge to get the 2-book deal.
Oh, okay, because I wrote it down.
Okay.
So let me know either way.
Well, you could either come in on a 2-book deal with me or make your own pledge. Just remember, if you want, if you each want a hardcover, there is no one package that right. There's a package that's a hardcover and a soft cover.
Oh, I don't care I don't care.
I would be keeping the hardcover.
That's fine. Soft would be fine by me.
Ah!
That's not what she said.
Well, Tim, is there anything else you want to tell us about Unspooled before we take off for the night? I mean, I've touched a lot of bases. You've asked a lot of great questions. We've had a lot of great questions come in, and I'm just so happy with the support. And this has been great. This is the kind of conversations that my music buddies have, and it's the essence of what we do, right? When it all comes down to it, I mean, you collect all these things, you agonize over finding every version of something, but we do it because we love it. And there's nothing that's any more fun to me than this really getting to the nitty gritty and talking to people that you don't have to say, this is the band that sings this song. No, you get right into the heavy duty minutia of the B-sides and the bonus tracks and the artwork and stuff like that. This has really been a great, great time. Well,
I have one word for that. Community.
Community.
Yeah. Absolutely. This whole thing is a community. Yep.
We're all nuts. Yeah, and it's a universe of communities, really, because you've got us in our little corner, and then you've got the Contrarians, and you've got the Sea of Tranquilities, and all these other. It's wonderful. It's all wonderful. Oh, look at this! We just sold another book. Oh, thank you, Robert. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Well, I would
You
consider.
know, I think Alice Cooper summed it up. Once you get that song, inmates, we're all crazy.
Yeah, and you know what?
From
Hearing
the
your
inside.
stories, and especially that soundtrack from the video Historia.
That's downright odd, is what that is. That's bizarre, but that's very cool at the same time.
Like you've heard the phrase "brothers from another mother." Well, I think
Yeah, really.
we're all the same, and that's why we do what we do and talk about what we talk about. And I'm thrilled that we sold a couple books tonight, or maybe 3.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, that's not a problem. Yep.
So October 23rd is your deadline. October 23rd is the deadline. These books are essentially being made to order. So you got to get in on it now, because who knows what the future holds. Yeah, at this point, what I'm thinking is most likely the books are going to sell out, and then Tim's going to be under so much demand that he is literally going to crack under the pressure, and we'll never have another chance at this again.
Hold on. Don't do the man in.
Crack, so that's
Hey man, I'm just trying to sell some books here. I'm trying to put the pressure on to
listen,
sell some books.
That would be a darn nice problem to have. That's for sure.
So could it be said that if you fully crack, you would become unspooled?
Ooh. And you hit the ground running.
And
There you go.
and there's the tagline to go out on. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I am going to go and eat some dinner, and I hope you guys have a
9
wonderful.
o'clock.
Sorry,
Dude.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
show comes first, man. Thanks, Tim. You have a wonderful weekend. I think we all have a long weekend. And
Yes.
Yeah, we do. Up here in Canada. Yep.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna as always, I'm gonna play a song on the way out. We are going to play the new Max the Axe track, Pygmy Blow Dart,
Nice.
from the new Oktoberfest Cheer EP. You guys have a wonderful night, and who knows when we'll see you again, but we will see you again. And I'm gonna have Tim on again for like a list show, probably.
Yeah.
Nice. Tim, good to see you again.
It is good to see you too, Aaron. This was a lot of fun talking to both of
Yes,
you.
sir.
Take care, guys. Have a great weekend.
Bye, guys.
See you, everybody.
Ciao.
Bye.
Blow dart. Let's go.